Is it possible to self-heal without medication? Is it possible to remove ailments such as anxiety, depression, chronic pain, stress, weight loss issues, and addiction by ourselves in our own home? And if so, what techniques exist to help us do this? Today, we're delighted to be joined and to explore these questions with truth seeker, entrepreneur, and healer, Dr. Björn Lenz, a man who Nicole and I are very blessed to call a very dear friend of ours. So Björn, welcome to Question Lab 42.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Nicole. What a pleasure to be here.
What a pleasure to have you. We've been quite excited about the build-up to this conversation. Not only to actually have the opportunity to explore this topic, which we both find absolutely fascinating, but to actually go through a little practice later on in the conversation, which I think the viewers will find incredibly valuable. So yeah, it should be a great call. It should be good fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Björn, can you tell us a little bit more about the EFT, the emotional freedom tapping? Sort of what is it and what's it about?
Yes, of course. Starting with the question that Nick just posed, is it possible to heal yourself from anything that you inflicted on yourself, basically? Like, what if we create this reality for ourselves anyways? So then the question would just be, okay, if we inflicted pain on ourselves, why should we need anything outside of ourselves to get to where we choose to be? And yes, EFT, emotional freedom technique, is one technique that helps that, or it's basically a tool. And there are many layers to this tool. Maybe just starting to talk about how it works. Like, the first layer is something that is called clinical tapping. And clinical tapping is, on the one hand, very boring, but that is a good thing because that means it's easy to use for everybody at home. It's easy to learn. It's easy to basically just work on yourself. You cannot make any mistakes with it. And it is even, there's many people have done research on clinical tapping, and it's interesting that the research has proven that it works, even though the medical community has no explanation that is in line with their values and their beliefs why it works, but it's still explainable. Let's start with a simple example. Let's say somebody has a trauma from a car accident, or trauma out of childhood, or anything that gets them into a state of anxiety or fear or guilt or shame. Let's say, to make it current reality, let's say you have a fear of getting coronavirus, of basically getting the disease and dying from it. And whenever you think about people in masks, you get anxiety and fear. And whenever you see somebody wearing a mask, you just want to keep distance and all that. So it's just a thought that puts your system, your body, into a state that is not pleasurable and not productive, not creative in this world. And the technique of tapping is very simple. You start with something called a setup statement, which just basically poses the thing that you dislike and the acceptance of yourself for who you are anyways. So in this example, even though, and to put up the setup statement, you always tap on the so-called karate choke point, which is on the lower side of your hand. And you just tap it lightly and you say, even though I have fear of catching coronavirus, I love and accept all of me. Even though I get nervous when I see people wearing masks, I love and accept all of me. Even though I'm afraid of dying because the virus is everywhere, I love and accept all of me. And what this does is two things. On the one hand, you're tapping on a meridian endpoint, which calms down your nervous system. But at the same time, you arouse your nervous system by talking to yourself and addressing something that is not in line with yourself, the fear. And this is basically a contradiction for the body. And what you then do is you tap on more meridian endpoints, which I'll go through in a moment, and just reminding yourself of what you're thinking of, what gets you aroused, like my fear of the coronavirus. And there are 8 points. One is the eyebrow point, like where the eyebrows, where the eyebrows ends at the nose, exactly. You tap on that and you just remind yourself, my fear of the coronavirus. Then there's the next point beside the eye. You just tap on that slightly, my fear of the coronavirus. Then under the eye, there's a bone. Tap on that, my fear of the coronavirus. Under the nose, my fear of the coronavirus. The chin, just in front of the chin, my fear of the coronavirus. Then there's this bone here. We have 2 bones. Can just tap in the middle because it's not very sensitive, but it is one of the bones basically here, my fear of the coronavirus. And then under the arm, where as a female the bra strap would go, my fear of the coronavirus. And then the top of the head, my fear of the coronavirus. And then you just continue where we started, my fear of the coronavirus. And what's happening is you remind yourself of that state of anxiety and you tap meridian endpoints that calm your nervous system down. So the body is basically experiencing something strange. It has a contradiction. On the one hand, it wants to get aroused, it wants to get the fear up and the anxiety up. And on the other hand, there's something that calms it down. And what happens is basically an override. Your subconscious is overwritten because the body is a very powerful tool, and the body then lets go of what doesn't serve you, what is unnatural, and fear of a disease is actually something that is not natural for us as infant beings. And that is how you help yourself get over of what is not serving you. And it can be used for anything, like trauma, childhood trauma, or trauma from current events, something that comes up. And even so, quote unquote, simple things, like if you have a headache, or if you have a sore shoulder, or if you have a pain somewhere in your body, you can basically just go, even though I have this pain in my body, I love and accept all of me, and just remind yourself on the pain on your body, tap a few rounds and see what happens. And this first layer of emotional freedom technique is they have done a lot of research, especially with easy stuff that are easy to measure, like pains in the body. And science realized, yes, it helps. We cannot really explain it, but yes, it helps. From an esoteric perspective, it is almost easy to explain it, but this is a very interesting intersection between esoterics and science, because science can basically measure that the tool works, even though that normal medicine would say, no, if you have a pain in your body, you need medication or whatever. Something needs to be fixed. But what if you take the position of, maybe I just created this for myself, and so I could just be able to let it go, heal myself. And this is what tapping is very easy to use as a first layer.
It sounds in essence like, what we're saying is these ailments that we speak of, this pain, this addiction, whatever, this trauma, whatever it may be. We look at the system as being like a computer. These are programs that we're installing, and this technique of tapping is almost like us hacking the system and getting in there and uninstalling those programs. Is that accurate?
That is very accurate. Hacking can be seen as bad, because it is not so much like it is very close to surrendering, in the sense of, what if we are infinite beings and we are here to experience ourselves, but through other lives or in this lives we created some obstacles, and this is the way to overcome the obstacles. Like, it's ironing out flaws in the programming. So hacking in a way, yes, but more in the sense of cleaning, more in the sense of getting aligned.
Yeah, like I invite my head of IT into my office because my computer has a virus and he needs to get under the hood of the computer to go in there and find it and remove it.
Exactly.
And in your experience, is there any potential, because it, you know, as you hear about it, it sounds awesome. You know, I think most people these days want to move away from excessive use of pharmaceuticals, and we're moving into this space where people want to be more self-sufficient. I think with what's happening with Corona, we've not, in my lifetime at least, been reminded more so of the importance of being self-sufficient and being able to self-maintain. So it sounds fantastic, and the first thing that comes to my mind is whenever something sounds fantastic, there's usually like strings attached, or there's usually you know, an exchange of downside or anything. So in going through this exercise, in your experience, have you found that it has any detrimental effects? There's any kind of negative side of going through this and using this technique?
Well, it depends on what your goals are, basically, but in a way, yes. Like, not so much with clinical tapping, because clinical tapping is just on the surface, let's say. But if you get deeper into tapping, the thing is, with this technique, with the technique of, on the one hand, you're talking to your subconscious, you're arousing yourself. On the other hand, you're using your body to reprogram yourself, to relax into whatever is coming up. You rewrite your subconscious, and that means your reality is going to change. But what does that mean? Like, if you take a more deeper example, let's say you have always fear of having money, because as a kid you learn to hate money, and you start working with tapping, also with other layers of tapping, on your fear of having money and everything in the way of having money and being in abundance. Then what happens is you rewrite your subconscious, but then what happens is reality shows everything that is not in line with your new self, with the reprogrammed self. So if you start to work on something, it might get worse, and everything is basically put in your face. But that's just like part of the experience of that. But this is the one thing I always warn clients about. Like, for example, if we start to work on issues of self-hate, which many people have, and you do intense tappings, what happens is reality shows you a lot of things where you used to hate yourself for. Like, you might get angry with your wife and your kids, and you might really feel a lot of shame and guilt and anger and fear rise up to the surface because it needs to be released. And this is basically the goal of tapping, in the sense of, okay, everything that's not serving me can go now, but it needs to say goodbye. Like, what if this reality, what if choice is a very important aspect of it? And it's not like taking a medication and then it just heals, but using this as a tool that gives you more choice. And the choice is still, okay, do I really want to overcome this obstacle that I created for myself? Am I ready to let go? Am I ready to lead a new life? Or would I rather stay the old me, keep the pain? And this is like, if you do intense inner work, reality often shows you exactly what you're letting go of. And that can be seen as scary.
Things I guess it works at many levels, because it's very easy, you know, when we talk about the emotional, it's a bit more abstract, but if we look at the body, something everybody understands, if you don't go to the gym and you decide I'm unfit, I need to go to the gym, and you have an awareness that you're unfit, that first day on the treadmill, you're going to realize exactly how unfit you are. And it's going to be put in your face. So it feels, you know, obvious, you know, when we face something that we want to improve, we're faced with the stark reality of our limitations or our difficulties, which are associated to that. So it's no surprise that it would work the same here.
Yes, and it's exactly that. Like, if you didn't work out for some time and then you really put in a workout, you get sore, and that is like, you could label that as a bad thing in the sense of I don't want that, or you can see that as, look, it's working. This is a pain of growth, and this is exactly the same as tapping. But if you go into tapping with the expectation of, yeah, just do this and then it's gone, sometimes it works that way, but not always.
It sounds very much like, I think nowadays in society, we do have that tendency to just want to fix, you know, like with medication, and we have something, we're going to want to get rid of it. And we want, you know, how can I fix it? How can I get rid of it? Without the awareness piece, without the going through the actual learning and, you know, conscious part of the process. And I think we're so used to that this kind of approach, I can imagine how it can be scary because you just have to face yourself.
Exactly. And it often even does the opposite of that. Like, many things that we have, for example, let's say you have a constant headache, and the question is, why is this there? And it might be that it is there to tell you something, that there's something that you're unwilling to look at or unwilling to think about, or something that you have suppressed in your schedule so deeply that you just do not want to look at it. And with tapping, as it is a very holistic approach, the beauty is you can just start with the tapping on the headache, and it might get better and it might get worse, but as you arouse yourself with the thought of the headache and you relax your body, it works not only on the surface of the headache, but it works also on everything that is underneath. So doesn't mean that during the tapping you suddenly get the insight, yes, I did suppress to look at my relationship with my daughter or whatever. It's not that easy, but this is exactly what happens in the reality. So whatever it is that is the cause of the headache, whatever is the reason that you create the headache for yourself as a pointer to there's something that I need to look at or work on, that will come to the surface in the coming days or in the coming weeks, and then you can let go of that. And as soon as you let go of whatever is beneath the surface pain, then the surface pain will be gone.
And I think you said something really, really poignant there, so much that if we're prepared to let go of it, if we're prepared to grow, because a lot of the time when we have these difficult things in our lives, these challenges or whatever else, that we can almost become addicted to them. You know, David Hawkins in Letting Go and in Power versus Force, he talks about, you know, a lot of people who have victimhood in their life, they build their identity around it, and you know, it's kind of nice to sit there and be judgmental to people sometimes. It gives you some kind of positive feeling, and to move beyond that is to let go of something that you might consciously tell yourself you want to let go of, but subconsciously have a deeper connection with. And the reason that I like the sound of tapping is touching on what Nicole said there. It's, you know, a lot of the time medication is just, you know, covering your ears when the fire alarm is going off. You know, the body is so clever at telling us exactly, you know, giving us these signs and giving us these alarms. You know, one of our mentors, Björn Peter, you know, he talks about, you know, when you're driving down the motorway and you go too close to the edge and you go on that bit, the rumble strip, which makes the, you know, this is like a sign in life. And what are you going to do? Are you going to listen to that and adjust your driving, or are you going to turn the radio up so you can't hear it? And a lot of the time medication does this, but, you know, I think we've become culturally so, I don't want to say programmed, we've become so accustomed to these quick fixes that allow us to turn the alarm down without actually going, into the kitchen to put the fire out, or whatever it may be. And I think it's a challenge, because we become more and more dependent on those external things to come in and deal with things for us. But ultimately, all we're doing is removing our power. And that's what excites me so much about this. It feels like a regaining of our innate power to be the masters of our own universe.
Yes, and two things that you said are very important. One thing is, our body is such an amazing tool. Our body creates our reality for us, and we have our body to experience all this, but it can also help us in so many ways, in so many more ways that we appreciate it for. And the second thing is, you still have choice. Like, tapping will never override your choice of looking at something. The thing is, when we have something in our schedule that we really don't like to look at it, there is a reason for that. There's so much pain associated with that, or whatever. And what it helps with is letting go of everything that keeps us from having a clear choice of, do I want to look at it or do I not want to look at it? And then it makes that easier, without imposing anything, without imposing, like, many people who have a trauma, for example, have this idea of, I want this trauma fixed, but I still don't want to look at it. And it's very understandable because it's painful. So I really want to let go of the trauma, but I don't want to look at it. And this is something that is like, this is one of the core cases why people go to medication or something. Like, can I just flush it out? And the answer is usually no, because you created this for a reason. There's a lesson for you in there. There's some growth potential in there. And the two key ingredients that make the magic of tapping are self-love, coming from the setup statement, and it can be enhanced in more advanced forms of tapping, and the relaxation that it induces in the body. And that allows you to relax into, what am I not willing to look at, without the judgment of it needs to be gone. And that gives choice.
I really like the way you present that, because to me that means that you can take people out of what we like to call victim mode, where they feel that trauma happened to them, and now I'm left with something that happened to me, but I don't want to deal with it because I want to move on and just get rid of it, or and things I'm the result of my experiences in life, and I just want a clean slate. And that this thing about choice puts you back in the driver's seat, rather than think that it's only pain and it's only something that you have to get rid of, that it becomes an opportunity to become aware of something, to actually grow into your power, and see that if you can, not through self-medication or ways of avoiding it, but through actual awareness, not only go beyond the pain, but actually grow from it. And as you were saying, you're presented with an opportunity to learn something. So it's not a lesson as in, you need to learn something. It's more like you have an opportunity to grow bigger. And that's, I find, a fascinating way to do it, because we like to use tools that are more maybe, that are a little bit different, whether it's be through conversation or through meditation and so forth. But here, this is a very, palpable tool that brings that up. And that's what I find fascinating, what you're doing.
And it's a very easy process. But I would also like to add, like, when we are aware of a trauma, then it is always filled with layers of shame for having the trauma, guilt of not having it let go long time ago. Victimhood is a very important topic, but especially all this, like, why is this happening to me? Yes, victimhood. Why didn't I master this a long time ago? I did all this, like, people who are on a spiritual journey for some time, there's often this idea of, why the fuck do I still have this? I've done so much work and I should be over this by now. And the beauty of tapping, from my point of view, is it is a body tool. And the body is not about outsmarting yourself. It's not about outthinking yourself. It is about relaxing into whatever is and accepting that. And big word would be surrendering here, but it's basically a tool to help yourself to surrender to whatever is. And yes, exactly, as you said, that gives you choice, and that gives you the opportunity to embrace it.
So I think we're all really curious to go through an actual tapping session with you. Have you chosen I know we have to choose a topic. Have you got one in mind that you want to take us through so we can take the audience through it?
No, the thing is, there's a next level of tapping. Like the clinical tapping is what I showed first. And it is very important because this is a tool that is very easy to use at home. You create a setup statement and you go through the points, you remind yourself, easy. The next level would be tapping through the relaxation of the body gives us access to the subconscious. And imagine if all of reality is just a mirror of our subconscious. If that is the case, when we find a way to reprogram our subconscious, we can basically program our reality. Not in the sense of, I want exactly this to happen this way, like not in a bossy kind of way, but in a surrendering kind of way. Like everything that is in the way of that, whatever it is I wish to create in this world, whatever stands in the way of me being truly myself and experiencing this world as being myself, how can I let go of that? And this type of tapping I call freestyle tapping because there's a lot more words to it, but there's no, like, science has not figured out how much help is in there. And from my point of view, it's basically, if you talk about nutrition, for example, it's very easy to prove scientifically in studies that it's good if you add a cucumber to each meal. But what if, as opposed to that, you eat a whole nutrition full meal that is exactly what your body needs because you ask your body what it actually wants to eat that day? Yeah, that is way more difficult, and therefore it's way more difficult to prove how effective it is. But it's still way more effective as just adding a cucumber to each meal. So I would enjoy guiding you through a meditation, through a tapping like that. The thing is, this is very specific. From the methodology, it works very much the same in the sense of you start with a setup statement and then you tap through the points, but it's not just a reminder phrase, but there's a story that is told. And the story is very specific to the issue that you're working on, in the sense of, this is what is dysfunctional in my world, and what are the emotions that hold it there in place, and basically release as much of that as possible, exactly as in the clinical tapping, but with more story, and then reprogram. What would I like to see in my world? What is the choice that, if I completely made it in my conscious and my subconscious, would create a different reality? And then all the wounds that keep me from healing myself, basically, lack of self-love, lack of self-appreciation, lack of self-acknowledgements, and lack of self-trust. And how can I have more of that? And this is basically freestyle tapping. So if you want to do that, either one of you gets vulnerable and has an issue to share, or I make up something. What do you feel?
Just we like vulnerability, so this could be fun. But just just before we get into it, just so I can get a distinction in my mind for a bit more clarity. So clinical tapping is kind of like cleaning house. You know, I have a challenge, I have a problem, I'm going to come in there, I'm going to clean house, I'm going to organize it. Freestyle tapping, if I've understood this correctly, has that cleaning house element to it, but it's also a bit more proactive in terms of the fact that I'm not just going to go in there and, you know, clean and restore things to their original state, but I'm also going to look to upgrade and improve aspects of it as well. Is that
Yes.
is that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
It's like, it is also much more specific in the sense of if your body aches, you can get a massage and that helps. This is like clinical tapping. Or you can basically get deep into it and have an operation on exactly the issue and look at the issue and take out all the tissue that is not working right and replace it with new tissue.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. Nicole and I are gingerly looking at each other now, waiting for the other one to step forward. If we were in a line and you said step forward, like I'd step back.
We'd probably both step back. And then
is there anything that's going? No, all seriousness, I'll throw something into the mix if unless you have something which is.
well, I was just sort of thinking, like we could just dive in with a nice big one, like abandonment issues or something like that, just for the fun of it, to see where that goes.
Yes.
You know, and it's probably something that could be relevant to both of us. We've just lost Björn. Oh no, there he is.
Yeah.
I don't know, unless you have a better idea, Nick.
I think that's really good. And abandonment issues was one of two that I had in my mind as well, because this is something that, you know, we shared this in our videos respectively that we both experienced in younger years, albeit details being different, the essence being the same, and which has manifest itself in the way that we act and therefore view ourselves in adult life. So I think it's vulnerability, and I think it's shared vulnerability. So yeah, that works well for me. If that's a good topic for you, Björn.
Yes, it's a wonderful topic.
Super.
So just for technical reasons, we still, I'd say we put ourselves on mute, because I think, do we repeat things after you? Is that correct, Björn, or?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe we'll still keep ourselves on mute so that we're not.
Mistiming doesn't make it a confusion.
Yes.
So that people can hear Björn clearly without us mumbling on top of it.
Yes.
Let me tune in. Do I need more questions? I don't think so. So, abandonment is something that is very common in all of us humans, and something that we always experience in childhood and carry forward into life and recreate it in our relationships, our current relationships. And what if we see this recreation of abandonment as chance to heal what already happened when we were very, very young? When, even as a baby, like at the beginning, we learn whenever we cry, we get food. But there was this one time where we cried and nobody was there. And we didn't get food. Maybe it was just 10 seconds and maybe it was half an hour. We didn't understand the world anymore because suddenly I'm completely alone. Something is not working. Will I die now? Tap on the karate choke point. Even though I have immense fear of abandonment, I love and accept all of me. even though there are parts of me who recreate this feeling of abandonment over and over and over again in my life, I love and accept every part of me, even though I'm so scared that I'll be alone because I'm abandoned by everybody. I love and accept all of me, even though I hate myself for behaving in a way that makes other people abandon me. I love and accept all of me. Through the points. I was abandoned so many times in my life. I can feel the pain. I can feel the pain now. And it hurts. What is this? How is this serving me? Why do I keep creating this for myself? What is wrong with me? I hate this feeling. I hate feeling abandoned. And yet I create more of it. Again. And again. And again. I feel guilty. My mother left me. And my father left me. Because I'm wrong. I'm broken. I'm unlovable. And I deserve to be abandoned. I deserve this pain. And I hate myself for it. I hate myself for making my mother abandon me. I'm too much for her to handle. And therefore she had to abandon me. I hate myself for making my father abandon me. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. Wait a moment. This is not completely right. I was a child. I was a baby. I was helpless. And I just did the best that I could do to survive in this world. To come into this world fully and to bloom, to flourish. And my feeling of abandonment is an illusion. Because I'm never alone. I'm always connected. My mother didn't abandon me. She just did her best to love myself. And she's a human being dealing with her issues also. I wasn't abandoned by my father. It felt that way. But he's a human being dealing with his issues to the best of his ability. So I decide right now, I don't need this feeling of abandonment. This is not serving me. I can feel it, and it's painful. It taught me my need for love and connection. And that's beautiful. I don't need that pain anymore. Don't need to remember my pain from childhood. And I don't need to recreate it in every relationship that I have. And I can forgive myself. And I choose to forgive myself. And I love myself. I trust myself. I appreciate myself. I acknowledge myself. I value the connection that I have with all beings. And I choose to feel connected every moment of now. I forgive myself. I trust myself. I acknowledge myself. I appreciate myself. Pot and pock. I forgive myself. I acknowledge myself. I trust myself. I appreciate myself. Thank you. Take a deep breath. And we're done.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Björn.
Yeah, a few things that are coming up I would like to mention.
Mm-hmm.
One thing is, when we do tapping, what happens is that we can or tend to release stuff that was stored in our body and that is then able to leave the body. So burping, farting, immediate need to pee, stuff like that is common in tapping, and it's not a bad sign. It's just you can embrace it and enjoy it, basically. Second thing is what happened there, like the stories that I told. This is not something that the mind makes up. This is basically the result of tuning in. And I have no idea why I went the way that I went. Usually in coaching, of course, they're way deeper explorations before of what is actually what does the mind make up as a problem so that the problem can be focused on. But on abandonment, I just went for the core to keep it moving forward faster. And this fear of abandonment is something that everybody who watches this call can connect to, because this is something we experienced all as children. And the third thing, in case somebody wonders, and many people who watch this call might have also watched the call, your interview with Rory Kilmartin, and the four things that I went through at the end. I love myself, I appreciate myself, I acknowledge myself, and I trust myself. Those are, from my perspective, and according to my research, the 4 wounds of the archetypes that lead you from the constructive version of the archetype into the shadows. And like everything that we do while we're being in this world that is not constructive is in some way triggered by the shadow archetypes, and healing those wounds is very, very effective for leading the life from your true inner sense of being, of who you actually are, not being driven by triggers and by old trauma. And this is exactly what is the healing energy that is injected into the tapping in the end, in the sense of the structure is at the beginning, what is the pain and how can we arouse the pain while going into relaxation and therefore invite the body to release it. Then there's a reprogramming, and then there is exactly what needs to be healed. What is the energy that needs to heal, that is basically like asking the body, like, here's something that you can use that to create the healing. And also tapping is not like the magic pill that we talked about. You take the pill and then it's gone. No, it's basically asking yourself, what is the journey that I need to go onto to heal? And this is basically the package of stuff that you need to heal, and I give it to you, and just take it with you and heal it during the next hours, the next days, the next weeks, or the next years, depending on how deep the issue is. And if abandonment is something that resonates deeply with anybody who's watching it, I would also recommend just do it for a while, every day, every other day, see what happens.
Yeah, this was going to be my next question, was going to be frequency, and so thank you for going into that, because we talk a lot within our other videos about the importance of really tuning into yourself and finding whether it be some kind of routine or some kind of practice that resonates with you. And we all have these different kinds of things, and we like to identify things which you can do by yourself in the comfort of your own home, if possible, that don't cost money, that don't require going through these far-fetched things. I think this falls so beautifully into that kind of category. And I'm glad you took us through a freestyle tapping as well, and you created the distinction between those two, because they've both got like this amazing they've both got amazing benefits. Like we talked about exercise earlier. I had a delivery downstairs, and I got so excited for delivery that when I ran downstairs to get it, I pulled my calf muscle like a little kid when I saw the van arrive. And the fun thing is that I'm actually going to do a little bit of a clinical tapping on that afterwards, and I think that's fun. But the second one that you've talked about here, I think it has like massive potential, because in any kind of personal development, personal evolution, one of the things that really attracts me is something that has results. And there's a lot of things out there that sound fantastic, but when I've gone through application with them, nothing's really happened, apart from the fact that I probably stroked my spiritual ego a little bit, that I'm doing something that seems a little bit woo-woo. But with this, it's definitely something I'm going to try, because there's one thing that you said which really stood out to me, and that's that this, I can't remember the exact words you used, but this is kind of like the crossroads. There's this interjection point between the esoteric and science, in so much that it works. Science just can't, with our current range of scientific understanding, explain exactly what is happening. So it's not commonly adopted, but it works. And then if you look at it through the esoteric lens, then all of a sudden you start to get a lot more clarity around it. Things like that just appeal to me. I think that when new comes in, it placates the left and right brain quite nicely. It gets that nice balance. So thank you, Björn.
And with freestyle tapping, because you can be so precise of whatever it is that pains you at the moment, you can, like, there's no limit on how deep you can go. It's just a matter of going for it.
I want to come back to the actual exercise quickly, just because you were talking about impact and results and stuff, and just want to have a little sharing about what I experienced. So we're going through this whole vulnerability bit, and we may as well go all the way. No, but the thing that I found really interesting, and I like the way you say that you just tune in, because that really resonates with me. In fact, that and making people aware of the fact that it's not just you're going through, like a script that you've prepared or something. You're tuning in to whatever's going on with us as well. So what I found really interesting was that sort of what the awareness that came up for me was through this whole abandonment sort of scenario thing, is that when, I guess it's logical, when we go through abandonment, we tend to, or I should bring this back to me. I imagine it's similar for other people, but my reaction would be to tend to not depend on people. Because when you've been abandoned, obviously there's that risk involved of being abandoned again. So you make yourself very self-sufficient. You make yourself very independent. You think I can handle this on my own. Then I won't feel the pain of not having been able to count on somebody. So that became a pattern that I noticed in my life. And then you said something that I found really interesting, because you said the abandonment, that sensation of having been abandoned, it taught me, or it made me aware of how much I need, how much I love to be with people, how much I need people. I don't remember the exact words you used, but the need for deep connection. And in that moment, I just thought, wow, that's funny, because it's true. There's a beautiful lesson in there. There's a beautiful message. And to react exactly in the opposite way, meaning I don't need anybody.
Yes.
It just goes to show to what extent when we are having an unconscious reaction, which is just a safety net. It's self-preservation, that we're actually doing exactly the opposite of what we need or what we're looking for. And so it becomes this vicious circle where the pain, the suffering, and the provocation of that is just feeding into each other. So I just wanted to share that.
So this is actually
insightful for me.
This is a pattern that you just point to that is very common in the human psyche, and even, for example, the archetypes. Pointing back to Rory again, the archetypal strategies are exactly what is not serving what they are looking for. For example, the warrior who always wears his armor and tries to achieve, pushing people away because he needs to achieve, while what he's actually looking for is self-love and love and connection. And the idea behind it is, when I have achieved enough, they will finally love me. And the truth is, as long as he's completely just on the achieving path, wearing his armor, never letting anybody close, he'll never get what he's looking for. And with the other archetypes, it's exactly the same. With abandonment, it's exactly the same. And this is like, I can't remember who said it, but something like, in the cave that you fear the most, there's your treasure hidden. And this is always, we feel a pain and therefore we run away. But what we want to is go into the pain, surrender to the pain, and see what's behind the pain. Because behind pain, there's always a potency, a gift. Yeah. And tapping is a tool to go through that. Another comment that just comes to mind is, when we do freestyle tapping, because at the beginning there's a lot of pain aroused, there's a tendency of the ego of, okay, I understand it, I hate myself, everything is fucked, can I go now? And this is well, it already did some of the work, but it leaves you in a state that is not very not a happy place. And therefore, when you do when you teach yourself to do freestyle tapping on your own, or you do freestyle tapping with somebody, or you just work the tapping that we just recorded, it's good to always go to the end. It's happier there.
Beautiful. Björn, I think I'm kind of complete in this session. Nicole, is there anything else that you want to ask or throw into the mix here?
No, I think that was a beautiful way to sum it up. And yeah, I think going through, it's not about going into the cave, it's about going through the cave and coming out the other side. And I think, as you said, you know, whatever technique you use when you go into these sort of shadow sides, it's not to be afraid of the shadow, because, you know, as long as you go through it, which is interesting. But no, I just want to thank you, because it was a very beautiful session. It was interesting. It was insightful. And yeah, I hope that people who watch this got as much benefit out of it as I did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else on your side, Björn? Anything you want to share?
I think I'm complete. I've said most of what I wanted to share. I hope this was a contribution to both of you and to everybody who chooses to allow themselves to receive. And I think I would like to mention one hack, actually a hack, while we did so much about tapping. In the esoteric, in the spiritual community, there's a lot about affirmations, like I'm healthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wise, or whatever. I know that you have also history with affirmations. And tapping brings the body into relaxation. So you can also use basically just part of that, just going through the points to boost your affirmations. And for example, just as an easy example, if you have 2 affirmations, I don't need money, I am money. Not going too much into an explanation here, because that could take some time, but I don't need money, which is the outside world, what you create for yourself, the striving for money. I am money, because whatever you embody is what comes to you. And if you just use those 2, I don't need money, I am money. 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 And go through a few points. It just potentiates and exponentiates the bang for the buck of affirmations.
Nice hack.
Yeah. I've heard that one.
At the end. Beautiful. Björn, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Very well received. And,
Thank you, both of you.
And looking forward to seeing you soon in person, hopefully.
Yes, me too.
Beautiful. Have a beautiful day, brothers. See you soon.
Bye.